Matthew, we were talking before the show. He's maybe the biggest needle mover out of the free agent quarterbacks. You see Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Ryan Tannehill, Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett. But with Cousins, he's a guy that, picture in Atlanta or wherever you want to say, the Steelers, it just elevates everybody from a fantasy perspective.
That's the point, is that there's so many offenses that where you're just kind of like, right? I mean, right, we're not excited about Pittsburgh. Like, we haven't even really talked about Arthur Smith becoming the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. We've beaten that horse throughout the season, but right, like, none of us, I assume, on this table are excited about George Pickens or Deontay Johnson next year, because whether it's Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph or whoever, somebody else they draft, like, you're not excited about them, especially under Arthur Smith. But if Kirk Cousins were there, suddenly, like, you know what, all right, yeah. Or to your point, Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, you're suddenly like, I'd be back in on Kyle Pitts, right?
London.
If somehow, if he comes to Las Vegas, you're like, Devontae Adams back being top 5. Like, I mean, just Cousins is the biggest needle mover he would elevate the players around whoever. We've seen, obviously, whether it's Justin Jefferson or Hawkinson or, whatever, Jordan Reed back in the day.
Right,
I mean, he has always been able to produce big-time fantasy numbers for his receivers
and Cousins
tight ends.
He has a very fantasy-friendly game where I don't think, if the Falcons get Cousins or whatever, they're not going to the Super Bowl with Cousins. But for fantasy purposes, I think it's awesome because he's a distributor. He doesn't run. Everything is check downs or downfield or in the intermediate. Lots of targets to go around. I mean, if he ended up in Atlanta, I mean, you'd have to think Drake London and Kyle Pitts get a huge boost from that.
I feel like they still figure out something for him to wind up back in Minnesota.
I think he'll end up in Minnesota.
Yeah. I think it's gotten also a little bit lost that just before he got injured, he was playing the best football of his entire career. Like, he was playing it. He wasn't going to win MVP or anything, but he absolutely could have finished 5th in MVP. He was playing at that type of level. And I think as well with his Achilles injury, you never know how people are going to respond. But I mean, it's not like he requires a ton of mobility. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had people believing that he was going to come back, weeks later from an Achilles test. So I think that Kirk Cousins, he should be back at a similar level. Obviously, he's getting a year older, but no, he was amazing this season when he was healthy.
The only thing teams will need to watch with him is that his Achilles was on the plant leg and Rodgers was not. And I'm not saying he's going to be done. I'm just saying that process to come back can be longer when it's on the plant leg.
And he also got, Rodgers.
He got injured later.
Right, he got injured later. Week 7, I want to say, something like that?
Yep.
It was in November,
Somewhere in there. And so, right, I mean, Rodgers, 4 seconds in or whatever it was. I mean, jokes aside. But, right, it's a longer, to your point, it's on the plant leg. It's a longer recovery time. Everyone's different. I mean, right? I mean, Cam Akers literally ran, right? I mean,
5.5 months.
Running, right. So just, you never know. I mean, but I will say that you do feel like, if there's one guy that's going to be diligent about his rehab, one guy that's going to, put on his, whatever, his button-down shirt. And
he's gonna get to it.
Yeah, get to it.
I will say the social media doctors, of whom there are many, have said that it's a totally different recovery process for a quarterback compared to a receiver or a running back, because especially a drop-back quarterback like Cousins, he doesn't require that sort of cutting ability that a Cam Akers would need. So I think it's possible he's playing in September.
Jay, is the best situation for Baker Mayfield to just go back to the Bucs, where you have Mike Evans in some comfort, even with Canales leaving? Is that the best situation?
I think it has to be, and I would be a little bit apprehensive if I'm the Bucs, because I don't think Baker Mayfield is a franchise Super Bowl winning type of quarterback. I think he is very solid. I think he is the 15th, 16th, 17th best quarterback in the NFL. But a lot of his numbers this year, and his numbers were amazing this year. He played at a fringe top 10 level in the NFL, but a lot of it was not, he wasn't great on first and second down, and then he was amazing on third down. Yeah. And that implies a little bit, perhaps, that it might not be sustainable. And I think that we got the Baker Mayfield experience in the Detroit game, where he was great for stretches. He drives them down the field, moves around, takes the hits, but then also kind of makes some mind-numbing decisions, and also gets hurt a fair bit too.
But you know what? Here's what I'll say. I don't disagree with anything you just said. But the other thing is that and this was the argument that I had as a Commanders fan for years and years and years. And people would be they would argue don't keep Cousins. And I really wanted to keep Cousins. And people same argument about Cousins. You can't win with, I got news for you. C.J. Stroud ain't walking through that door.
I know.
Mahomes.
Allen, Mahomes, Lamar.
Right. I mean, for everyone that sits there and looks at, okay, yes, they hit a home run with C.J. Stroud, and you look out there and you see Mahomes and Allen, Lamar Jackson, and sort of these elite guys, right? There's a lot more Gardner Minshews out there. A lot more teams that are having to start, Aiden O'Connell, like guys that are like fine. You know what I mean? Like there aren't a lot of like, Kirk Cousins. Is Baker Mayfield going to lead you to a Super Bowl? Probably not. But he led you to a division title and a win, right? You know what I mean? Like you got to the second round, you got to the divisional round of the playoffs with Baker Mayfield this year, which, by the way, I don't know how many quarterbacks that are available this year. You're going to be able, they're not going to be able to draft somebody high. And so, yes, every once in a while you land into a Brock Purdy, but that's few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I think the only thing is like they need a way out of the Baker Mayfield experience if it's not going well in 2 years. But I do think like he is the guy who will give them the best chance at winning games next year that is likely to be available, and he's very solid. I think he's shown that, and he has the pedigree of being a number 1 overall pick. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have those aliens like Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Stroud, and Lamar, and those guys in Herbert, they might be the only 6, those aliens.
Right.
And if you don't have them, then you need to go the Lions route of building a star team around Jared Goff. And could Baker Mayfield excel in that context? Yeah, potentially. It's just they wouldn't be
And that's
selling
the
the
thing.
future.
There are guys like that like Jared Goff, like Kirk Cousins, that are like, yes, with a good, and I think Baker's in this class of like when there's somebody good around them, when they have a really good defense and then you protect them, they get, like they're not going to put you on your back and have you win a game, but like they can run an offense. That's the thing. It's like you're just hoping somebody. How many quarterbacks started a game this year? 67, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's ridiculous. Like, Tyson Bagent got 3 starts this year.
I remember.
That's the state of the league.
I'm old enough to remember that.
All the backups play. All of them.
that's the
Tim Boyle.
that's the point.
Tim Boyle played.
Tim Boyle.
Wild.
Three games?
Yes.
Yeah,
3
right.
games.
I mean, like.
Do you like Baker,
that's
Danny?
the point.
Yeah, so I think, Liam Cohen being hired as the OC in Tampa, I think that suggests that Baker is going to stick around for at least 1 more year. Cohen has experience with Baker in L.A. I don't know if folks remember that, Baker Mayfield played for the Rams for about 4 or 5 games 2 years ago. So I think that he is going to stick around. And I think for fantasy purposes, that's probably pretty good. I will say Jay's point about him kind of getting away with it on 3rd down concerns me because I've seen those same numbers where he was really poor. Like the whole offense was poor on 1st and 2nd down. They excelled on 3rd down. I don't know if you can keep that up for a whole another season.
Well, hopefully Mike Evans is back for him as well, and we'll talk about
Yeah.
wide receivers. The last thing I'll just say here is that him being in the same system, and I know Canales has moved on, but like I'm sure they're going to run the same system basically. Like this is a guy that's also bounced around a lot. Like
Right.
this is what his 4th team in 18 months or something like that. So I think just being able to come to the same facility for a second year in a row, and there's Chris Godwin. I think all that stuff helps. The last thing on quarterback that I want to mention that I think is really interesting, just because as we talked about, like the fact that Tim Boyle started 3 games, right, and you have all these guys, is just how important backups are. Denny, I think Jacoby Brissett's kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, imagine Brissett last year on the Jets. I'm sure Connor's thought this once or twice.
Might be in the playoff hunt.
They
that
would
point.
be.
Right,
I
probably
think
would
they
be.
would be a playoff
Yeah.
team.
Think about if the Browns didn't,
Yes.
if the Browns had never got rid of him, if he'd just been Deshaun's
exactly.
backup the whole year, and they didn't
Yes.
have to screw around for a month before they found Flacco where they got lucky.
The thing with Brissett is that he was highly efficient with the Browns as a starter in 2022, and then in his brief moments with Washington last year, he was efficient again, highly efficient, and he elevated the pass catchers. He elevated Terry McLaurin. Remember, Terry McLaurin became like the best receiver in fantasy for half of
Terry
one game.
McLaurin.
Yeah. And so I think that Brissett has that ability. I don't think that he lands somewhere where he can start right away. But the way that, quarterbacks go through injuries, and Matthew just said 65, 67, whatever quarterback started, I think that Brissett could end up playing a lot of snaps this year for somebody, and I'm kind of excited about that from a fantasy standpoint.
I actually think the Commanders should consider, I don't know if they will or not, if they could trade Howell, and then keep Brissett as a backup to Caleb
number 2
Williams
pick.
or whatever.
Right.
Like
That's
that
actually a
would
great
be.
call.
I don't know if Brissett's going to want to go for that, but like
They can't go with Howell, right? They can't possibly go with Howell next year.
I don't think they will.
No, I can't.
I don't
I
think they
can't
will.
imagine.
But I will say this, I think Howell is I think Howell's a top 20-ish quarterback in the NFL as well.
That's tough. I don't know.
No, you don't. You got. He
could
showed
go
enough.
Well, let's not forget
It
that
was
it was
a very
his second year in the NFL.
second year in the NFL, very dysfunctional team, brutal offensive line. I thought Howell made enough plays, showed enough flashes. There's something there. Now he may be more Gardner Minshew than than Joe Burrow. but
Yeah.
but like Sam Howell, I think is I think he's a top 20-ish.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.